Alexander, Meadow, thanks so much for being with us. Alexander, let's start with you. Can you give us a brief synopsis of the Beehive?
Sure. Thank you, and thank you so much for having us on your program today. The Beehive is about a family, and they're living on a farm, and it's a single father and two children, Rosemary and Aaron, and the little girl Rosemary goes out into the back forest and she finds something that looks like a hive or a nest growing on the side of a maple wood tree, and she comes back to it every day, and it is starting to grow in kind of an unusual shape, and she doesn't really recognize that it's possibly could be harboring something a little more dangerous and unfriendly. And yeah, I guess that's the basic premise, is that it's sort of like a family that's slowly coming to the realization that there's a pandemic alien invasion coming.
Nice. Meadow, you know, it's been quite a year for you with a role in a Treehouse cartoon as well, but this is your first kind of lead role in a feature film. What was the experience like for you?
It was really nice meeting everybody on set. They were all so kind. Even though it was my first feature film, it was just like all like really like fun.
Alexander, we're starting to see more Indigenous-led thrillers and sci-fi films. Are you finding there's more support for these types of projects now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both Indigenous and non-Indigenous audiences are, I think, more receptive and open, and not just that, but broadcasters, and also I just think global audiences are more accepting of hearing these stories from that are not necessarily from non-Indigenous storytellers.
Meadow, what do you hope people take away from the film?
Maybe that like Indigenous films aren't always about like trauma in the past and stuff, and this one's about aliens. So it's pretty cool, yeah.
Alexander, the film's going to debut later this month in Vancouver. Will a broader audience get a chance to see this film soon?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to be playing at the Rio Theatre in Vancouver, just to do a little plug, November 17th, which we're really excited about. And then it's also playing in Toronto later in November. Yeah, it's going to be streaming on Hollywood Suite next year, and then it's going to also be playing on APTN and CBC in the following year. But just to piggyback on what Meadow was saying, it's just so important to be seen. I think it's just so important to be seeing Indigenous peoples and stories of Indigenous peoples that are not always just. I think Indigenous communities have had a lot of suffering, but it's important to be also telling stories of, I would say, different stories that are not necessarily about suffering, but are about the future, and are about strong, resilient characters that overcome obstacles in everyday environments.
Absolutely. Meadow, Alexander, we'll leave it there, but looking forward to this. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.